I'm Jordan. Jordan Plays Blue. This is another monthly roundup. We are now in April 2023. One quarter of the year is over. So let's talk about March. March was a really cool month of games. I was able to go with some gamer friends to a cabin in kind of central Ohio for a weekend. I was only there for 2 days, but I think everybody else was there for 4, maybe. Played a ton of great games. A couple of the games that I'm talking about tonight, I think I played 3 of them there. I've played, them since or before, but yeah, I played a bunch of really great games there. I got to play Evergreen for the first time, which was really great. I played it twice, and that one was a lot of fun. Can't wait to get my hands on a copy of that one. There's another one I liked a lot that I hadn't played before. Oh, what was it? Oh, it's escaping me. I'll come back to that one. But the last time I did one of these, I didn't talk about any negative reviews. I typically like to do negative reviews in these, at least one. So today I'm going to do 2 out of the 4. So hopefully it doesn't feel too negative or too kind of blah. But yeah, I do like to do those just to kind of balance it out, because I don't like every game that I play. I want to make sure that folks know that. There are some games out there that aren't for me, and what kind of games those are. And also, it might not be worth it for you. I think negative reviews are as useful as positive reviews, or maybe more positive, more useful in some ways. But before I start about these games, I know there was a lot of talk over the last month about kind of reviewing in general and some of that integrity when it comes to board game reviewers. And so I just wanted to address a couple things. For me, I know I'm a tiny little channel with just a couple hundred of you subscribing, but when it comes to Jordan Plays Blue, whether on YouTube, Instagram, any TikTok, any of those outlets that I post on stuff, I have never been paid by a board game company for a review. I do Kickstarter previews at times, and I have been paid for those previews from time to time, but I've always been very careful to not post my thoughts about the game in those previews, just talk about what the game is like. And then I typically will do a review of the game if I was not paid for that preview, if that makes sense. I never want to muddy those waters. And I've also, any payment I've gotten from different places, I did have a sponsorship once from a board game website, not BGG obviously, but from a board game website briefly, had a sponsorship through them, but they don't produce any games. I also am paid for some content I do for the Dice Tower, but of course I don't have any sort of trickle down from any of, and I think they operate with the utmost integrity, I believe, anyway. So yeah, so I don't get paid for those types of things. These games that I have here, one was given to me as a review copy. I do get review copies periodically, but these, I pay for a lot of the games that I end up reviewing. I have started on Instagram posting saying whether I paid for the game myself, because I think some people care about that. Sometimes I review games that were friends' copies. However I play the game, I want to talk about it in some way. So I think that's that. I do, especially on Instagram, because I post at least 2 reviews a week typically. And most of them are positive, and I'll tell you kind of that process. So typically what happens is, if a publisher is looking for a reviewer, they will send out email blasts to reviewer groups, or they'll post on Facebook reviewer groups looking for content, and I might respond to one of those. The thing is, I typically only respond to the ones for games that I think I'm going to like, because I'm spending time playing the game, and I don't usually go into it thinking I'm going to give this a bad review. This game doesn't look very good. Sometimes publishers will reach out to me specifically and say, hey, do you want to check out my game? And sometimes I'll say yes, and sometimes I'll say no, because I don't think it's a good fit for what I kind of cover here on my channels, which are typically like shorter games, family-friendly kind of games, that kind of thing. And so sometimes I'll say no to that. So I think a lot of reviewers do more positive reviews, because there is that kind of almost confirmation bias. You are getting into a game that you already have a positive thought of. I think rarely is a reviewer channel like the Dice Tower, like a like some of the Board Game Go or Board Game Co. or Quackalope, or those bigger channels that might just be sent games and then they just review them based off of what they feel like. Most smaller reviewers like myself are just picking games that we think we're going to like up front. And yes, sometimes I don't like them. Two of the games here I thought I was going to like and ended up not liking as much. Two of the games I'm talking about here, one of them I was surprised about. One of them I kind of thought I would like, and surprise, I did. That's just kind of how it is. I know what my tastes are. So I hope that kind of, I don't know if that helps or not, but I don't know. Let's just talk about some games. So let's start this off positive, right? That's fun. This is Fiction. Fiction is from Allplay, formerly BoardGameTables.com. I feel like I've been playing a ton of Allplay games recently because I kind of have been. This one just came out. This is a Barnes & Noble exclusive from what I understand right now. I was able to play this on the Dice Tower Cruise first, and was able to play it again over the last month. And since I picked up a copy at Barnes & Noble, did pay for this one. There you go. And I just really enjoy it. But I also know that I like word games. That is not something that I know most board gamers don't really like word games. I do really enjoy word games. I played a lot of Boggle growing up. I remember in high school there was like a Boggle tournament that one of the teachers signed me up for. And I had a lot of fun with that. I play Scrabble Go on my phone a lot with people, and so I do enjoy word games. Fiction is a word game that is a take on Wordle. It actually says on the back, a Wordle-inspired game of deception. And so this is essentially Wordle, which is kind of based off of Mastermind, word-based Mastermind, where you're giving yes or no clues to different letters in a word. And this is for 5-letter words. But in this game, there is one player who's playing against the rest of the players. So it says 2 to 8 players. One person is the librarian who knows the word, and they're the ones giving you the yes or no clues. And everybody else is playing against that player. And the librarian, the thing is, they have to lie about one of their clues each turn. So if I think the word is crown, that's on the back here, that is my guess. And you're going to tell me, the librarian is going to tell me if the C is correct or in the wrong spot, the R is in the correct space, the O is not in the word, the W is not in the word, and the N is not in the word. But one of those is a lie. So maybe there is an N in the word, and they said there wasn't a word. There wasn't one in the word. And so that wrinkle alone makes it so that the game is going to be more... It's definitely going to be trickier than a Wordle, where sometimes, when I was doing Wordle regularly, I could usually get it within 10 minutes or so. And this takes longer than that. It's not much longer, maybe 20, 30 minutes for the game. But it definitely adds, it feels like it should be one layer of kind of deduction, but it adds a few layers, because as you're going through, you can see all of the things that were suggested each turn. And so you can always go back and kind of audit yourself and audit what you said and audit what they said. This one is really solid. If you like word games and you like Wordle, that's like the closest thing to this. Definitely check this one out. I've really enjoyed it, and it's at Barnes & Noble right now, and it's only $15, which is a ridiculous price point for this product, just on like a, on like a product-based thing. But the game is also fun. But yeah, that's Fiction from Allplay. All right, one that I didn't like as much. This is That Old Wallpaper from AEG, and this is the 4th, I believe, in the line of Point Salad, Truffle Shuffle, 10. I think those are the first 3 in like kind of this size card game line, and I really, really enjoyed those first 3. I think Point Salad is definitely my favorite, probably then 10, and then Truffle Shuffle, probably in that order. But I think they're all great games. This one is easily last place for that. I think this game is just okay. I don't think this game is very good. You know, it's not much to write home about. It is a playable game. It is fine, but I don't think it's as interesting as the other ones for sure. A couple different reasons for that. One, this is a kind of some simultaneous auction game where you have a hand of cards and they have different numbers on them. You're simultaneously going to flip the cards, and it's almost like the second half of For Sale, where you're going to be assigning those cards in this row of different wallpaper patterns. And so the wallpaper patterns kind of look like the front of the box here. And you are trying to collect those wallpaper patterns and put them out in front of you. Now that auction part is, with more players, feels more random. With fewer players, causes more ties, which are just, it's a less interesting kind of arrangement with ties. And so I don't know what the ideal player count is, because with more players, it just becomes random. You have no control over what's going on. And I think partially that is because the wallpaper tiles, there's no real assigned value to them. It's all very relative value to what you have in front of you. And so for you to really deduce what is best for you, how to bid, you're going to have to look at everybody's things, and also you're assuming that all of them are going to be playing optimally as well. And sometimes they just don't know what to do either, and they're just going to put a card down. So it feels very random with that auction phase. But then also with the tile laying, when you're putting those cards down, it definitely lacks some interesting decisions, because it feels so fiddly to try to figure out what your score is at any given time. So your score for each color, your scoring for each color is for pairs of color shaped, so color size of colors. So there's blue pieces of wallpaper. There are large blue wallpaper, small blue wallpaper, right? And you're going to score based off of the pairs of small wallpaper and blue. Small blue, big blue. And so you're constantly having to re-audit yourself about how many big blues do I have? How many small blues do I have? How many big blues do I have? How many small blues do I have? This turn I got another big blue. Oh, that puts, okay. And you're constantly having to go back and forth. And it just is, oh, it's so fiddly, and it, like, mentally fiddly. You're not really fiddling with components, but it feels, it just lacks some polish, I think. And it looks really cool. It has a cool kind of aesthetic, but yeah, just didn't work for us. That's that. Old Wallpaper from AEG. So that's a bummer. Another game I didn't love was Traintopia. I've joked that this is the forgotten tea game from Board and Dice. Teotihuacan, Tekenu. I honestly don't pay attention to those games a ton, because they're not really games that really excite me. But Traintopia is a light tile-laying game with some drafting. And so probably the most interesting part of the game is the drafting, because you're going to have a bunch of tiles out, but you also have these other tokens. They might be little meeples of different colors and things like that. And so on your turn, you're drafting something. You might draft a tile. You might draft a meeple. You might draft a train piece. And so that is interesting, because you're drafting different things, and so that value proposition is going to change from player to player about what is valuable to you. Like that Old Wallpaper, you don't necessarily know what's going to be most valuable to the other players, but it feels like there is some actual value there to these tiles and to the tokens. So the drafting is very interesting. Where I think this one falls flat is the tile laying, is the way that the train map pieces kind of go together is just very bland. I feel like the tracks were not very interesting. There is a group of like higher, like more exciting tracks that you can purchase, and when we've played this, those always go first, because those tracks are so much more useful, so much more exciting, and then the rest of the game you're like, I got stuck with these kind of really boring, like a straight tile, or this really doesn't fit anywhere. Like a tile that just has too many, too many like ins and outs, and it just doesn't fit anywhere that is useful. And so I think there's some also weird graphic design stuff in here, but yeah, I think ultimately this one's just fine. It's not really that exciting. It's also pretty short and pretty unoffensive, but I just don't think, in this day and age where we are kind of in a board game, you know, yeah, not renaissance, because I mean, it's just a fantastic time for board games. Something that's just okay doesn't usually cut it. So I think Traintopia is just okay, and it'll probably keep falling back into obscurity, unfortunately, but maybe it deserves it. We'll see. And the last game I wanted to talk about, I don't own. Will probably pick up a copy. I'll love to pick up a copy when I can in the future. I just don't know how widely available it is, and it's called Rebuilding Seattle. Put it right here. Rebuilding Seattle is from WizKids, and this is a it's a probably medium weight, I suppose, kind of Euro style game where you're rebuilding Seattle. There was some sort of disaster. I don't remember it. Maybe a fire of some sort. I don't know. They're rebuilding Seattle. And so this is primarily a city building game that heavily relies on tracks. And there are polyominoes. I've seen people describe it as a polyomino game. I think it is a polyomino game in the ways that Feast for Odin is a polyomino game. Feast for Odin is a worker placement game with like resource management, and it happens to have polyominoes in it. It doesn't feel like the core of the game is polyominoes. So Rebuilding Seattle does not feel like the core of the game is polyominoes. It happens to include polyominoes. Okay, so if you're worried about polyominoes, you're cool. This one is more focused on tracks. And so each turn you are taking you're going to be collecting these cards, and the cards are going to allow you to take a tile and put it somewhere on this board. But you also have these action tiles that you can take, and it allows the players to kind of control the cadence of the round, how fast the round is going, how slow the round is going, how many more turns. And as you're taking those, almost Puerto Rico style, whoever takes it gets a bonus, and then everybody else gets to take that action kind of thing. A lot of those actions are focusing on these tracks on your player board. And these tracks are going to allow you to, at various times of the game, maybe give you money for how higher you are on a track, points for how high you are on a track, or one or the other one. And then you have this other track that over here that is it is a population track. And so your population of the city, and this is some sort of weird disconnect when it comes to theme, because you don't really want population in your city. I think it might technically be an unemployment track. That would make more sense. You don't want unemployment, but it's a population. It's kind of saying you don't want population, which is weird. So you actually want it to kind of be lower than as low as you can put it, and have the other markers pass it up. And those other markers are going to correspond with those other tracks that you have, and those other tracks are going to score if you're, far enough along the track with population behind you. Very weird to describe. It works super well. It does feel punishing at times, because it almost feels like a donkey with a carrot, and you're just kind of moving like, oh, each round you're like, oh, it's going further and I can't catch up. But it's so engaging, and it's so interesting the way that it all pieces together. Oh, it's a game that I've had time just thinking about how to play better I've played it twice, I think, at this point, and I've thought about it in between, since I've played it each time, thinking, how can I do better? How can I solve this puzzle of where things are and how things are going to intersect and entwine and just come together? And I can't wait to get my own copy and play it some more, because I think it's a really cool game, and I think a lot of people are going to kind of sleep on it. But I think Rebuilding Seattle is a really fantastic game, and I can't wait to play it again. So there you go. I'm Jordan with Jordan Plays Blue. I hope you enjoyed this monthly roundup. The next one I might include May, because we've been playing a bunch of games together, and I think she's got some stuff to say. So hopefully we can do that together. But I think that's all I'm going to say. All right? Till next time. I'm Jordan. Thanks.